Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to paint a scene from Genshin Impact. So let's get started. First I'm going to wet the paper with clean water so that I can create a smooth transition for the sky. Then as I'm waiting for the paper to absorb the water, I'm just gonna mix a light purple color by mixing white, primary red and a lot of ultramarine blue. This is going to be the base color for the sky. And I'm going to paint this color in like the middle part of the sky. I'm not worrying too much about the brush stroke here because our paper is wet. So when I put on the next color, which is the lighter purple skin tonish color that I'm mixing right now, it's going to blend in nicely. And I'm going to paint the lighter color right below where we just put the purple one. And it's going to get lighter as we reach the top of the waterfall. And now as the sky going up is going to be more blue and a little bit darker. So I'm mixing more ultramarine blue to my mixture. And I'm also adding indigo to make it darker, to paint the top of the sky. And I'm trying not to paint over the rock on the top right. Usually it wouldn't matter because gouache is opaque and you can just put another layer on top of it. But right now I'm trying to paint my sky in only one layer so the mixture is relatively thick. And the rocks on the top right is going to be very bright. So that's why instead of painting over them again, I'm just going to avoid them. Now while I was waiting for the sky to dry, I'm going to mix a skin tone color for those rocks on the top right corner. And to mix this color, I'm just adding a lot of white with yellow and red until I got the color that I want. It should be very light because these rocks are going to be the lighter part of the painting. And I'm just going to use this as the base color and covering both of those rocks right now. Then I'm using the light pink mixture that I mixed for the bottom of the sky to paint the shadow on those rocks. You generally want to use a soft brush for this so that the colors can blend in smoothly. Now I'm switching to a smaller brush and I'm adding a little bit more burnt umber to the mixture to go in for the more detail on the shadow. Now I'm using the purple pinkish color to add the darker shadow on the rocks. And now that our sky is already dry, I'm going to go back in with a very light pink to add in the cloud. And make sure that your pink color is not too watery because our sky originally was pretty thick, so we want our second layer for the cloud to be just that thick. Now it's time to paint the waterfall rocks in the shadow. I'm mixing a lot of indigos, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of burnt umber to create this purplish, not too saturated color. And for the shadow area, I'm just adding a little bit more indigo and more burnt umber. While for the light area, I'm adding more white to the mixture. Now as you can see, because we wet our paper beforehand, I can create a soft edges transition between the areas on the rocks. If you want to create hard edges on some area, just switch to a smaller, stiffer brush and use a thicker mixture. For the waterfall, I'm using phthalo blue as the base, and to make it darker, I'm just adding indigo instead of black to keep the saturation. And again, because we wet the paper beforehand, it is a lot easier to smooth out the transition between the colors. And for the bottom part of the waterfall, I'm mixing in some yellow to create more of a turquoise color to indicate this is the area where the light hit. Now for the water on the river, I'm mixing a lot of white with cobalt blue and phthalo blue. I'm also adding a hint of yellow, but not too much. You still want the color to be mostly blue instead of turquoise like the bottom of our waterfall. Here the river gradient is going to be the opposite of the sky. So the bottom is going to be the darkest area, and I would add more and more white as I move up to the center of the page. Now that our rocks is relatively dry, I'm going back and adding more white to the dark mixture that I have and just adding some texture and some highlight on the rocks. Painting this screenshot from the game is actually a big challenge for me. Usually when I use a real-life reference photo, I can just simplify a lot of things. But here in the screenshot, I'm afraid that if I simplify things, it wouldn't be the same. So I'm trying to add all the details I can see. Another challenge is that the screenshot that I found actually a GIF photo, so everything was moving. So for example, the highlight that I'm adding on the water right now, I'm just kind of guesstimate where would be the best place to add them because from my reference, it's just moving all over the place. Now for the rocks on the bottom right of the painting, you want to make sure that the value is still the same because it's still in the shadow part, but you want to vary the color slightly so it is not the same as the one right above it. And I'm getting that color by adding more burnt umber and cobalt blue so that the color is slightly blue instead of purple. And now I'm mixing a greenish color for the moss on the rock. Again, because the yellow is a lighter value, make sure that you mix in enough blue to tone it down so that the green for the moss still match the shadow value of the rock. Now for the further away rock in the background, I'm mixing the same skin tone color that I have for the top right corner rocks, but it's going to be slightly darker because we want to draw more attention to the rocks on the top right corner, so we want to make sure those are the brightest. Now for the shadow area on those rocks, we want them to be dark but still lighter than the shadow rocks on the right hand side of the painting. Here I'm just mixing a dark green to add some foliage and some details on the moss for the rocks on the lower end of the right hand corner. For the further away waterfall, it's going to transition from a very light blue to a light turquoise at the end. And for the one that is darker, I'm using phthalo blue for the top part, transitioning to a light cobalt blue at the end. Now it's time for all the little needy details and foliage. For a warmer lighter green, you would want to add more cadmium yellow and white to the mixture, while for the other cooler green, you would want to use more phthalo blue with lemon yellow. And if you want to make it darker, just add a little bit of indigo blue, while to make it lighter, just add more white and lemon yellow. To paint the texture on the waterfall, I'm using a very light pink, pretty much the same color as the one I used for the cloud. I also switched to a smaller and slightly stiffer brush because here you do want hard edges. Now for the foamy smoky effect, I'm using a very watery white and pink to blur everything around that area out. Also, you want to try to clean off your brush regularly because some of the dark blue paint that you're getting off will stick to your brush. And in order to get a light color around that area, you definitely want to have your brush clean. Now I'm just going to switch to even a smaller brush to add pretty much the same texture on the further out waterfall, but make sure that you use a lot more white for this waterfall because it's in the light, so it's going to be a lot brighter than the one on the right hand side closer to us. Now back to our foreground waterfall. I'm doing the same thing, but this time I'm just using a light cobalt blue instead of pink. And the reason why I'm jumping around a lot instead of just finish one area is that I want to make sure that that area already dry first. In this case, I want to make sure that if I ever put the blue on top of the pink doesn't get reactivated and then blend in with everything. And now the final part is to add some highlight on the foliage that we just put down before. And that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helped me out. My next video is probably going to be a tutorial on how to paint trees with gouache, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!